Now let me just say something about Eminem. This is before Eminem has his great gay awakening. Right? In 2002, with 8 Mile, Eminem has his great gay awakening. He realizes that gay men are real men. Still hates women, but gay men are okay. Don't believe me about the women? This is from January 2009 in an interview in Esquire where he's asked, now that he's such a grown-up. And he says, I'm a t-shirt guy now. But wife beaters won't go out of style, not as long as bitches keep mouthing off. Okay, so he still doesn't like women very much, but gay men, okay. So here in 2002, he's asked, what is up with you and gay men? Why do you have the word faggot in every song? What is up with you? And here's what he says. He says, the lowest degrading thing you can say to a man is call him a faggot and take away his manhood. Call him a sissy. Call him a punk. Faggot to me doesn't mean gay people. Faggot to me just means taking away your manhood. So you hear that. It's not about sexual orientation to him. It's about gender. It's about masculinity. Taking away your manhood. So that's the first issue that I think is in front of us. That making gender visible to men is also simultaneously making privilege visible. And that is very uncomfortable. Let me move to the second area where I think, second area of change in women's lives, the workplace, where I can talk a little bit about some of that discomfort. Because after all, that second rule of manhood, be a big wheel, is all about success, wealth, power, etc. And so that second rule, be a big wheel, conflicts or sometimes is in tension with the dramatic changes in women's lives around entering the workplace. So, and this is a place where I think we see some of men's resistance. So I want to talk about that. With making gender visible means making privilege visible. Now you can imagine there's going to be some resistance. So I was on this TV talk show. You're all familiar with it. Black female host comes out of Chicago. And I got to say, we academics, we are not typically the ideal talk show guest. Because the talk show format these days is very us, them, black, white, yes, no. And what do academics do? We get out there and go, well, it's a little more complicated than that. That is really bad TV. So they don't usually get us on there. But I was on the show opposite 4 guys who you might call angry white men. They were 4 men who believed that they were the victims of reverse discrimination in the workplace, also known as affirmative action. That they were qualified for jobs, qualified for promotions, which they did not get because they went to undeserving people instead. And so they had these stories to tell, and then it was, sort of my turn to speak. And the reason I'm telling you this story is I want you to hear the title of this particular show, which was a quote from one of the men. And the quote was, "A black woman stole my job." And all of these guys told their story about how they were qualified for promotions, qualified for jobs that they did not get. And this one guy said, because, a black woman stole my job. And then it's my turn to speak. And I just said, listen, I just have one question here. It's really about the title of the show, "A Black Woman Stole My Job." Actually, I have a question about one word in the title. I want to know about the word "my." Where did you get the idea it was your job? Why is it the title of the show, "A Black Woman Got the Job," or "A Black Woman Got a Job"? Because without confronting men's sense of entitlement, we'll never understand why so many men resist gender equality. Look, we think this is a level playing field. So any policy that tilts it even a little bit, we think, oh my God, water's rushing uphill, it's reverse discrimination against us. Look, white men in America are the beneficiaries of the single greatest affirmative action program in the history of the world. It is called the history of the world. So, as a result, so this is important, because when we make gender visible, we're making privilege visible, we will receive that resistance to it, because it's about that entitlement that is very difficult for people to talk about. So let me gears now and try to make the case for how we can talk about it, how we can talk through that, or talk through or convince through that entitlement. And I'll move to the third area of change in women's lives, the balance between work and family, and that third rule of masculinity, being a sturdy oak. Now here, I think we can take men at their word, because college-age men say that they want to be really involved parents. They want to be really involved fathers. They want to be much more involved fathers than their own fathers were. They really want to be involved with their children. And we can take them at their word for that. Now, how do we think about this? How do we become an involved parent in this society? Well, we have this phrase. I love it. It's called quality time. You've run into this before. Quality time, where you say to your child, Friday afternoon, come home from school, we'll go out, we'll throw some passes, we'll bond, you know, and your child is likely to say to you, sorry, Dad, I'm busy, but I'll text you. I don't believe in quality time at all. Those moments, anybody here have a kid besides me? Okay, those of you who have children, you know that those moments, not to be too autobiographical about it, but you know, that moment, the 43rd time you're watching Toy Story, and your kid kind of nuzzles into you, or my kid nuzzles into me and says, oh, Daddy, this is so great. I love you so much. And what you know at that moment is this would not have happened had you not watched Toy Story 42 other times. I am a big believer in quantity time. Doing the boring, routine household tasks that nobody gets an award for, nobody gets to be Father of the Year, just the routine household tasks. Look, nurturing, caring, and loving, this is not a mystical state of being that you need to go off to the woods to chant and drum in order to learn how to nurture. This is, as we social scientists say, a set of practices, things people do. When men do them, they will be nurturing. Now, why should we do them? Now, also, by the way, this is not simply personal lifestyle choice. This is public policy. There are 3 reforms in every organization and institution all across the country that basically go under the title family-friendly workplaces. On-site childcare, flexible working hours, and parental leave. Now, how do we think about these reforms in our society? We think of them as women's issues, right? But they're not women's issues. They're parents' issues. And when men start identifying in public as parents, we will say, I want on-site childcare so I can be around my kids. I want flex time so I can figure this out with my partner. I want parental leave because I don't want to miss a second of my kid's early life. Now, if any of you have ever spent more than a nanosecond studying public policy, you would know that women won't get family-friendly workplace policies unless men support them. But I'm arguing that we also need these to live the lives that we actually say we want to. Now, men tend to have 2 phrases that we use to describe our family and workplace participation. They both have 2 words in them. We help out and we pitch in. And I'm going to propose that we simplify that. Just one word, share. That when men share housework and childcare is the only way for us to have the kinds of relationships with our families we say we want to have. This is not the imposition of some ideology here. This is taking men at their word. Now, why should we do that? Well, here I'm going to rely on some good psychological research and good sociological research about men's participation in family life.